We love books, we always have. Actually, the Big Read is a long-lost Yogamatters tradition that we have brought back to life. We asked a handful of amazing yoga teachers about their favorite book and how it has inspired their yoga practice, on or off the mat. Prepare to be inspired. Also, why not join the Yogamatters Book Club Facebook group where we explore a new book every month and provide a community space to share your thoughts about books you have read or are reading. Join here. Ida Huntick recommends Your Body, Your Yoga by Bernie Clark. This book changed my mindset completely when I learned that our unique anatomy will mean we reach the ultimate range of motion through compression. We need to make the practice work for us and not the other way around, and remember the intention of the pose, not the idealized image we have of it. I would recommend this book for any yoga teacher or practitioner who wants to gain a deeper understanding of human anatomy and how it influences your practice. Svetla Karamchik recommends The Power of Ashtanga Yoga by Kino McGregor. When it comes to literature on yoga, we usually have to choose between asanas and philosophy. In this book though you can find a bit of everything, meaning of basic yogic terms, inspiring story of the Westerner girl who started to live a yoga life, detailed postures, techniques. It has bits of all you need to know when yoga becomes more than a regular workout. And you don't necessarily have to practice Ashtanga yoga. Asanas and philosophical background explained in here are universal for any style. Anna Fuchs recommends Black Box Thinking, The Surprising Truth About Success by Matthew Syed. Not so much a yoga book, but definitely one that I would recommend to shift the way you think about your practice. Simply put, the book is all about failing. Interestingly, it proves that how we process failure will either set us up for great success or further disaster. We have to fail first, and in a world of picture-perfect yoga, this is just the book you need to ignore those ideals and instead embrace your fails, on and off your yoga mat. Mariel Whitman-Bateman recommends Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. I grew up uncertain of who I was, eager to please and constantly reinventing myself to what I thought others wanted me to be and what my surroundings dictated I should be. Through Brené's words I realized that disconnect I felt for so long stemmed from my fear of being seen for who I truly was, my fear of showing up and failing, and what keeps us apart is our inability to embrace being vulnerable. Molly Robinson recommends The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. I started reading this book after completing my first YTT. I was in a place of feeling like a little fish in a giant pond. I felt lost. Although everyone tries to push their egos to the side, it's very hard to admit that you're not as good as the rest, you're not as flexible or as strong. This massively weighed on my mind as a newly qualified instructor. This book gave me the attitude to recheck, to push my ego to the side. It taught me that not only is it okay to struggle, but that by struggling, we learn, we grow. Physically, my struggles drive me to grow in my own practice. Ambra Vallo recommends Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. I chose one of the first one that took my breath away. This book is stunning. I love this book as it speaks about all the questions about existence, life, death, good, evil, love, karma, self-realization. The relationship to the God within and the amazing power, freedom, and responsibility we have been bestowed with. It speaks about suffering, how we create it in our reality, and how we can transcend it. About karma, karmic debt, and karmic lessons, and self-realization and the path to mastery. Kelsey Sylvanetu recommends Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. As a traditional Tantra Hatha teacher, a big part of my work is moving with the energy of masculine and feminine. This book helped me honor the feminine energy even deeper, bringing moreness and depth to my overall practice. Highly recommend it. Esther Marie recommends The Path of the Sutras by Nikolai Bachman. Brilliant book that delves into key principles of yogic living, personal practices, yamas, niyamas and inner development. From discussing suffering, heart, mind, past, regulation of the body and breath. combines knowledge and wisdom so eloquently that when reading it not only do you learn but feel so awake and inspired to live your best life. This was the second yoga book one read at the beginning of my journey in 2016, and due to its brilliance it began my addiction to learning about the philosophy of yoga. Celeste Ferreri recommends The Chimp Paradox by Professor Steve Peters. A lot of yoga philosophy, although lovely, isn't terribly practiced. This book feels like a philosophy book for the modern person. It has helped me better understand my own mind so I can be my best self. Hannah Barrett recommends The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's a short but powerful read that has the ability to change your mindset and make you happier. The personal freedom I found from reading it was life-changing. Steph Fall recommends Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola. This book taught me how to rewild myself back to my true nature, which is woman of wisdom, power, courage and soul. Susie Redding recommends Yoga and the Quest for True Self by Stephen Cole. This was the read that really helped me link psychology and yoga in concept and practice. I also loved Stephen's description of the breath in Connecting with Our Calm Abiding Center. A deeply soothing and inspiring read. Sarah Grogan recommends 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, an eye-opening book for me. Everyone should read it. It's changed my perspective on relationships. Knowing and understanding the ones you love is of course crucial to the success of any relationship, and this book breaks down the types of people that exist and how to work out what their love language is, so you can communicate effectively. I also loved this book for the deeper understanding it gave me of myself, and my needs, and indeed how it applies to friendships, not just romantic relationships. Chris McGee recommends The Dance of the Lion and the Unicorn by Mark Waller. Not strictly to do with yoga, more psychology and understanding the mind and human relationships, communication, great for living yoga off the mat. Another would be Do Your Own Thing by Rebecca Pacheco, for giving a modern outlook and understanding Teajic traditions, and making them accessible to today's society. A really easy and fun read on what could be a dense and heavy subject matter. Finley Wilson recommends I Don't Want to Talk About It by Terrence Real. This book really made me look at myself and the way I behave and act, not only on the mat and the way I tear myself down, but the relationships I have with everyone around me. It has given me the tools and awareness to see in others the ways that depression can manifest and the ways we as teachers can get people back into their bodies, without thinking that we are trauma therapists. This is one of the few books that had me sitting back and thinking, oh gosh, that's me they are writing about. David Pierce recommends The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. Amazing self-help book for anyone struggling with life and looking to understand themselves better. David Tilston recommends The Book of 5 Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. Why do I love this book? Because to me it reiterates this: nothing is separate from anything else, and the key does not reside in the accumulation of ideals and forms, but in the removal of these, understanding the ego and the cultivation of unbound flow that transcends our own human experience. Naomi Epsilon recommends A Life by David Bowie. It's a constant reminder to keep coloring outside of the lines, to explore endlessly, that to live a creative life is to live a spiritual life, that spirituality can often be found in the most unexpected places, and that those who wear it like a badge are often best avoided. Andy Kobylinski recommends Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. I read all his books, but Siddhartha has delighted, inspired, and influenced generations of readers, writers, and thinkers, including myself. In this story of a wealthy Indian Brahmin who casts off a life of privilege to seek spiritual fulfillment, Hesse synthesizes disparate philosophies, Eastern religions, Jungian archetypes, Western individualism into a unique vision of life as expressed through one man's search for true meaning. Andrew McGonigal recommends Your Spine, Your Yoga by Bernie Clark. This is a Bible for any movement or anatomy geek. With very in-depth material and an evidence-based approach, the book really helps the reader to understand the intricacies of the spine in relation to stability and mobility, and reminds us repeatedly that our bodies are each entirely unique. It's a book that you'll come back to time and time again. Jana Cavendish recommends Eastern Body, Western Mind by Anadia Judith, connecting psychology to the chakra system in a beautiful and practical way. I have found this book so illuminating and healing on a personal level. It's also a great inspiration for teaching. Other favorites include The Great Work of Your Life, Stephen Cope and The Gift, poems by Hafiz, the great Sufi master. Craig Norris recommends A Systematic Course in the Ancient Tantric Techniques of Yoga and Kriya, by Swami Satyananda Saraswati. Within it are some of the most powerful but accessible practices of yoga for the evolution of human consciousness, as well as a rundown of everything Hatha Yoga from asana, pranayama, mudra, bandha, and cleansing practices. It also goes through some amazing meditations, how to practice mantra yoga and how to slowly build up the practice of Kriya Yoga with all 20 Kriyas. It also includes discussions on subjects such as Tantra, Yantra, Bhakti, chakras, as well as a discussion on vegetarianism that I would recommend as an omnivore. I see this book as a true yoga Bible with its nearly 1,000 pages. It's a bit of an expense but necessary for any serious yoga student. I am still finding gems of wisdom within it 14 years later. Katarina Rayburn recommends Light on Life by BKS Iyengar. Regardless of whether you are a teacher, practitioner, the principles in this book can be related to the principles in everyday life. It's a beautiful book for anyone to read. Ganda Savio recommends Journey to the Heart by Melody Beattie. My absolute favorite book is one I read each morning. It is part of my morning rituals. While sipping warm water with lemon, I read the daily meditation. There is one for each day of the year. They are thought-provoking, inspiring, and instill positivity in my mind to start the day on the right foot. Laura Large recommends Ashtanga Yoga, The Practice Manual, by David Swenson. I love reading, especially about yoga, so it's really hard to choose. But I think that one would have to be top of my list. It's the first book one, but when I started practicing Ashtanga, and it's worth its weight in gold for any Ashtangi, or teacher. The primary and intermediate series are both really clearly laid out, and there are modifications given for each pose, for any level. I refer to it all the time. It's an invaluable practice aid. Mimi Kuo Dima recommends Stephen Mitchell's translation of the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is the seminal text on Taoism. This book has been hugely influential on how I view the world and how I believe I can best live in it. I keep a small pocket version in my yoga bag at all times. Mitchell's translation is modern, which means it takes certain license with the meaning of the original text. Nevertheless, it is my favorite version as it describes the deepest paradoxes of life using language that is modern, evocative, poetic, and alluring. It also honors nature's generous, humbling power and mystery while shining light into the predicament of being alive, and how might we find kindness through living in a balanced and generous way. Carolyn Cowan recommends Magic and Mystery in Tibet by Alexander David Neal. I love her observations on profound practices. She was a woman traveling in disguise to Tibet in the 1910s. She saw, experienced, and participated in practices that transcend all that we currently believe possible. A very inspiring read. Phoebe Greenacre recommends The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. First love it, is its narrative that's set in Peru that gives you major insights to live in learning how to deal with energy exchange. Louise Indigo de Menthon recommends Bringing Yoga to Life by Donna Fari. She so clearly outlines the philosophy of yoga, whilst also perfectly depicting the experiences you undergo when beginning your yoga journey. It's a book that you can so easily relate to as a new or more seasoned yogi. I found myself carrying it around and dipping into it even after I'd read it twice. Callie Popham recommends Intelligent Yoga, Listening to the Body's Innate Wisdom by Peter Black. A BBT presented. It encourages us to ask crucial questions around how and why we practice yoga, encouraging teachers to move away from a reductionist, anatomical and mechanistic view of the body, instead understanding that the body doesn't move in parts. It is an intelligent, feeling vessel and moves from intention, from this bottom up through the sensory nervous system, as opposed to this top down, moving from a thought, concept or idea. A must-read. Sarah Highfield recommends, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff and It's All Small Stuff. Simple Ways to Keep the Little Things from Taking Over Your Life by Richard Carlson. I've read this book several times and still reread sections of it every now and again. It's of so many wonderful examples about how we can live a happy, contented life. It offers solutions to everyday occurrences which can upset or stress you out. As a yoga teacher, it reminds me to always be empathetic with my students and to live as presently as I can. Zaruhi Grumbar recommends, Journey to the Heart by Melody Beattie. I often find that inspires the intention for the day and filters into my practice and teaching, as my teaching is very much heart-led, both physically and metaphorically. Right now I am also loving Myths of the Asanas, Alana Kaivalya and Arjuna Van Der Kaowa YJ. Rosalind Southward recommends, Fierce Medicine, by Anna Forrest. This book really opened my eyes for the first time to the fact that there is more to yoga than just the physical practice. This book inspired me to take my first Forrest yoga teacher training, and is a constant source of inspiration for me. I love to delve into it sporadically, and no matter which page I open it on, I always receive the wisdom I need to hear at that moment. Emma Jeffield recommends, 10% Happier, by Dan Harris, without offending anyone. I love any approach to meditation that takes the spirituality out of it. I am a yoga teacher and I meditate daily, but I am also a very logically minded person, and I appreciate scientific evidence and real-life stories more than ancient traditions and philosophy. I related so much to this book, which takes a very realistic, hilarious and, at first, skeptical approach to meditation and mindfulness, but also eventually proves what incredible benefits it can have on anyone's life. After reading countless books on yoga philosophy and meditation, this one is what really prompted me to get a regular meditation practice going once and for all. Anna Ashby recommends, The Yoga of Discipline, by Guru Mahavasananda and Yoga Body, by Mark Singleton. Carolyn Cowan recommends, Yoni Shakti, by Umadeen Smortuli. Huge research into the roots of yoga and how it affects us as women. It is a real tome, a must-have for all women. I don't agree with all that she says, and I love this, that I have my own experiences and opinions. But I have gifted this book to many women. Chris Jackson recommends, Touching Enlightenment, by Reginald Ray. The most inspirational book one have read. I read it first in the early stages of my practice when I was trying to reconcile what it was that I had been searching for within the practices I had found. Reading that book felt like coming home. To this day, the practices and the philosophy within those pages act as a cornerstone to my practice. Kina McGregor recommends, A Path with Heart, by Jack Cornfield and Edwin Bryant's Yoga Sutra. Joey Miles recommends, The Hero's Contemplation, by Christian Pisano. My biggest inspiration these past few years. Emma Newland recommends, Sure Ways to Self-Realization, by Swami Satyananda Saraswati. This is one of the books that has had a big influence on my development as a yoga student and teacher. Some of the practices are pretty mind-blowing and things I wouldn't ever expect to come across in a modern-day yoga class. The book is a great reminder of how expansive and magical the practice of yoga can be. Richie Norton recommends, Yoga, Fascia, Form and Functional Movement, by Joanne Avison. This book helped me connect the dots from my bodybuilding and human performance training with a more detailed look into what's actually happening when we move. When we know how to make a better connection with our body and mind, the more powerful and progressive the practices become. Sarah Ramsden recommends, Awakening the Spine, by Banda Scaravelli. I read it decades ago, and it was the first moment that I realized that the teaching and practice of yoga need to be informed by our human design. Lightbulb moment. Charlotte Watts recommends, Yoga Mind, Body and Spirit, by Donna Farhi. When I was starting out, this book was a constant support to make sense of what I was learning and experiencing in classes and later within my teacher training. I have studied with Donna since, and her work has been highly influential in my practice, teaching and writing. I need to add in anything by Judith Lassater too, and also T.S. Little's book Yoga of the Subtle Body, which is more recent but an invaluable resource that brings in the poetry of yoga philosophy to the physical matter of the body. He is a wonderful teacher. Oh, and Joanne Avison's Yoga, Fascia and Anatomy. Oh, and John Sturck's Original Body. Rebecca Bierugel recommends Reconciliation, Healing the Inner Child by Thich Nhat Hanh and 10 Types of Human, Who We Are and Who We Can Be by Dexter Diaz. I recommend absolutely anything by Thich Nhat Hanh, but above and beyond, the greatest healing on my journey of understanding myself came about reading Reconciliation, Healing the Inner Child. Nowadays, I'm madly interested in the workings of all of our brains, so loving 10 Types of Human, Who We Are and Who We Can Be. Eliane Kodaroli recommends Asana, Pranayama, Mudra, Bandha by Satyananda Saraswati. I used this book so much during my early and middle teaching years that it fell to pieces and I had to buy a new one. I like many of the Bahar School of Yoga books. Another favorite is Yoga Nidra. Sharon Whiteley recommends How to Use Yoga by Mirametta. I love it because when I first started yoga it was such a simple step-by-step guide to the Iyengar method and uses plain English and lovely clear pictures of the basic pose. I still love it now as it tells you how to use yoga for everyday problems. Hannah Coast recommends Bringing Yoga to Life by Donna Farhi, my fave book at the moment. She's very real. Chloe Chifers recommends The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. A life-changing read on the power of opening your heart and staying aligned with your soul to discover who you are. Each chapter had me captivated as to how we can shift our perspective to see the light in every day. A very practical guide that is modern and can be applied to everyday life as we live it now. Learn to stay open no matter what happens. If you do, you get for free what everybody else is struggling for: love, enthusiasm, excitement and energy. Tell us your favorite